Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me inside of the 2021 BMW 3 Series. Not just any 3 Series, this is the plug-in hybrid 330e. And it's new, it's the first plug-in hybrid 330e. Big power, make the light, we made it. It is the first 330e, I should say, plug-in hybrid on this new G chassis BMW 3 Series. Now, if you are a longtime follower of the channel, you know I have owned many BMWs, but a BMW M3 specifically of the last generation. So I'm very familiar with the previous generation chassis, and this is actually my first go, believe it or not, in the new G chassis BMW 3 Series. So this one is a video where we are going to drive the car in a city environment, a mountain canyon blast, a hard drive, and then we're going to cruise down the highway. These are really the three environments I think most owners will spend the most amount of time in. Therefore, I really focus just on driving dynamics in this video. If you're interested in a full tour or a walk around, we're just going to pull over, let the ambulance, just give him room in case he needs it. And if you're interested again in a full tour of this vehicle, feel free to check out our previous videos where we have gone on an in-depth spec and feature deep dive, basically. Let's get into the city driving. Right now, I'm just in the standard hybrid setting. This is the key up setting for most of driving, and it is doing most of its driving electric. Total system horsepower is 288 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. However, 110 horsepower and 77 pound-feet of torque is just the electric bits. So this plug-in hybrid has significantly more power than a battery electric vehicle that I own, my Electric Smart, by almost double. Not quite double, maybe 50% more. And so that means this thing can do all of your daily driving just like this, all electric. In even hybrid mode, never kicks on the combustion engine. And I really love this because the point of a plug-in hybrid is it's either going to be an introductory to a battery electric vehicle, or you're using it as sort of a electric around town and gas for long distance. That's probably how I would use one. I'm still under the belief that plug-in hybrids are a compromise solution. I think you can have a better combustion vehicle without hauling around all this extra complexity for long-term reliability and also weight and fuel savings when the engine is on. You have to haul around this extra weight, and then if you have a battery electric car, then you can do more driving electric and more power electric. So this is definitely a compromise, don't get me wrong, but going into it understanding the compromises, this car is great. Now, in the regular hybrid mode, you can do all of your driving fully electric. You don't even think about it. You just plug it in at home, get in the road in the morning, and it will turn on the combustion engine when the battery's out. The best way to use this car is to plug it in whenever it's convenient. You don't have to ever plug it in. I'm sure there will be 330e people who lease them who will never charge them up, and that's fine, but you're not going to get good efficiency that way. So I have not done a test yet, but something I'd really love to do is live with a plug-in hybrid, let's say for 6 months, and track all of the miles in my daily driving to see how many of them truly were done electric or on combustion. I just have no idea, to be totally upfront with you. I'm lucky I get to drive a bunch of different cars all the time, so it'd be nice to have my main car as a plug-in hybrid test, because I'm sort of a anti-plug-in hybrid person, because I think you have better solutions on other sides. So I should force myself to live with one, I think, to see what I like. Anyway, driving this car around the city, let's get into the 330e. First off, all of the great benefits of regular 3 Series are here. Now, again, this is not a review of the car. This is a review of the driving dynamics. So we'll have other videos on the car itself. But let's talk about driving in the city. Well, first off, you have tons of safety systems. You have backup assistant, which is really cool. It remembers your path. So if you pull into a parking garage and have to get out backwards for 50 meters, it will follow your path backwards. Great feature. I actually just did a TikTok on that the other day. If you don't follow our TikTok, it's Out of Spec Studios, and yeah, our audience there seemed to really enjoy it. I don't think there's much crossover between our YouTube and TikTok audience. Sitting at a stoplight, of course, we're just in hybrid mode. It's just basically off. I have auto hold holding the car, and I also have the driver assistance displays up, which is the natural setting. It shows me cars in the lanes. It shows me cars in the lanes either side of me, and it also does a really good job of just lane centering. We'll talk about that when we get on the highway, of course. This car will also do eye tracking for low speed driving, but I have not had a chance to test that in my time with it. What I'm going to do is lock the car in electric mode now, because this is how I imagine most owners would drive their car. There's a setting where every time you start it, it can be in electric mode. And I love this because on a cold day, I don't have to kick on a combustion engine. It doesn't have to do a cold start cycle. I can just get in, jump out of the driveway, no noise, no drama, and all is good. When you're driving in pure electric, the electric motor is sandwiched between the combustion engine and the transmission. This particular version is just a rear-wheel drive 330e, and it's rated at 22 miles of EPA range in the city. I've done a test. I tested it 25 miles in the city, and surprisingly 28 miles on the highway in my 70-mile-per-hour loop. And BMWs consistently seem to be getting more EV range on the highway than they do in the city, which makes no sense to me. I don't understand it at all. But I found that quite interesting. If you're interested in that range test, go to Inside EV's YouTube channel, where don't know if that video's up yet or not, but eventually it'll go there. So you have this electric motor sandwiched between the engine and the transmission, and what that means is you feel it shift gears. You don't really feel it under light acceleration, but the nice way that BMW has calibrated this system is when you lock the car in electric mode, you can go all the way to the kickdown switch, not depressing it, but just do the kickdown switch, and it will run all electric. When you're at wide open throttle to the kickdown switch, you feel it zzz, zzz, shift gears, and that just drives me nuts. So it's better to drive this car slow around town, even though with 110 horsepower and 77 pound-feet of torque just for the electric system, it's got quite enough grunt to move this thing around. Yeah, really impressive. So far, I think we've driven this car 220 miles, something like this. At least 100 of that has been inner city electric driving. A seriously impressive portion has been on electric alone. I am blown away. You have a 12 kilowatt hour battery pack installed under the rear seats. 9.09 kilowatt hours is usable. And that's just because you need a big buffer on a battery electric or a plug-in hybrid vehicle, because you're going to be full charging it and discharging it. So I don't really feel bad about doing that. What's nice is you get this little gauge on the dashboard that shows you electric power delivered, and it goes up to 60%, but it'll hit that 60% and you still have way more throttle left. Look at this thing go. That's wide open throttle right there. And we're like catching up and blowing past cars. There's a gear shift, 52, 55, 60 miles an hour. Like, it's quick in electric mode. This is faster than some combustion vehicles in a 0 to 60, and this is just electric. You can drive up to 87 miles per hour, all electric, which I believe is 19 miles per hour more than the previous generation 330e, which is really quite impressive. Everything about this car specs wise is improved, and gotta say, BMW's done a nice job cruising around. Now, this particular one is also optioned with the variable ratio steering. So at low speed, let's say I need to make a quick U-turn, right? It will decrease the amount of steering wheel turns I need to do lock to lock. So look, it's about a, let's just say, 2 1/4 turn lock to lock, great turning radius, and I don't really have to work the wheel. And then when the speeds increase on the highway, it backs off on that ratio, so I can have more feel and more, ability to get the car exactly where I want. It's not going to be as darty. And this is hugely important. The Tesla Model 3 has a really quick steering ratio, and I think makes it quite dangerous on the highway, actually. And here, this is going to be adaptive. This is an option. I would tick it if I was buying one. We have to get into the price though, because this car is 60 grand, nearest makes no difference. And what's funny is I own a Model 3 Performance, and this car MSRP and my Model 3 are within $400 of each other. So I have to go out on a trip, but in an upcoming video, Liam and Timon are going to take this 3 Series and my Model 3 and compare them, because there's a lot to go through, and arguably the Model 3 has been stealing 3 Series sales like crazy, and I totally see why. Look, I bought one and I used to have a 3 Series, so I fall into that category. But I really like this car, and I think this car deserves a chance. I have to cut this city bit short, of course. I just have to take this Mustang Mach-E to California for a couple days on a road trip, but I wanted to at least share my impressions here in the city. I've already shot the canyon and highway portions. We're going to do that right after this clip. But this is a surprisingly easy car to live with every day. You can precondition it with the BMW app. If you have a Samsung Galaxy, you can actually use your phone as a key. You just put it in the wireless, or you tap it to the door handle, then you put it in the wireless charger, and that turns the car on. You have a NFC card that comes with it for remote access as well. Great sound system, wireless CarPlay, new for 2021, wireless Android Auto as well. Everything here is good. It hits all the marks. And as much as I disliked the BMW X3 plug-in hybrid that I drove just a few weeks ago, I love this car. It's seriously it is good. And it almost makes me feel bad for really hounding BMW on not making fun to drive cars. I think, I had the M8 competition. I've driven X5 recently. These are just the big, heavy, brutish cars. But I think BMW still does the smaller numbers, the 2 Series, the 3 Series, and these cars still retain some of that fun-to-drive BMW characteristic that I certainly love and appreciate. So this might be my favorite modern BMW that I've driven. I can't wait to test out the M3 version. We'll talk a little bit about that car when we get up in the canyons, but I love the power, the torque, the electric driving, the way that this is not a slow plug-in hybrid like some are almost, you're not able to get up to speed with this. You could just drive down the highway no problem in electric mode. A really, really good car to drive around the city. So let's take it out in the mountains, rip it up a canyon, and then cruise down the highway afterwards to see how well it does. We have now reached the base of the canyons. We're going to select sport mode. There's a couple different settings for sport mode. There's standard, there's extra boost, which is a new version of sport mode, and individual. So I'm actually going to select individual. I have it tailored to how I want it with light steering, but everything else in sporty modes. We're going to leave the transmission and drive just as we get used to this car a little bit. And I want to talk to you a bit about extra boost. So when you select extra boost, it will give you an additional 40 horsepower for 10 seconds. Yep, that's exactly what it is. And I'm not sure how it's really doing that, and I'm not sure if that number is calculated into the overall horsepower and torque of the vehicle. I bet it is. So here we go, foot hard down. First time I'm flooring it. Whoa, it revs out pretty far, more so than other of the 4-cylinder engines I've tried in this configuration. As we mentioned at the start of this video, this one has the dynamic handling package, and I have the high voltage battery, the plug-in battery, charged up to 50%. So you know what, let's just go into that extra boost setting. And now driving it on the twisty road here, I'm not sure I like the light steering as much as I thought I would. Extra boost seems pretty good. So now what it's doing is it's going to take that high voltage battery, the plug-in system, and use it on top of the engine to get the total power output, is what I'm guessing. So let's go. Big power on the way out of a corner, a little bit of traction control there. This one's on some regular all-season tires. Come on, downshift. BMWs have always been sporty, so it hasn't been lost. Well, I can already tell traction control is just getting in the way, so we should just turn that off. One step to dynamic traction control. So now we have it backed off a little bit, and this should allow the car a little bit more slip and slide. If it is still too much intervention, I will turn it all the way off. No problem doing that here. What else do we have going on? So total power is again 288 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty good. This is again the 4-cylinder engine that goes in every BMW product. That would have been a great opportunity for you to pull over, Jeep. Come on. And I guess it gives me a chance to talk to you a little bit more about this car. Tons of different drive modes, 8-speed Steptronic sport transmission, which is really good, cracks off the shifts, really smooth. The only thing I think negative about the transmission is when you're in electric mode, you feel it shift, as we'll talk about in the city driver. We did talk about, I should say. And yeah, see, downshift, super crisp, boom, boom. It's about as quick as you can expect for a torque converter. And the upshifts are good too. This is a detuned version of that 2-liter 4-cylinder. As I mentioned earlier, this one is 181 horsepower just for the 4-cylinder engine component, which this engine goes up to about 300 horsepower in something like a BMW M2 330i or a mini John Cooper Works GP, kind of the same engine, just this is a detuned, different configuration of that same powertrain. So good engine, they use it in everything. Actually fairly reliable now, few years on the market, so I would say this is a really good, solid power plant, 100%. In terms of sizing of the vehicle, it's sized really well. You know, 3 Series has grown over the years, but it's still a manageable, easy size to control. I think it works well. And yeah, with the rear drive nature of this car, you really feel it coming out of corners. It's something you don't get with the X-Drive. The X-Drive on a road like this would be faster, would be more capable, because you could get the power down out of corners. In the rear-wheel drive configuration, as we have here, you're going to be slipping and moving around, and I prefer that. That's what I like for sure. And Yeah, let's just juice it here. Yeah, you can just see it just rotates real nice. Really like that. Instant power too, with 110 horsepower coming from the electric side, only 77 pound-feet of torque, but it makes the most of it. You get almost an EV-like driving experience when you put your foot down. It's pretty neat how instantaneous this responds in this extra boost setting. Yeah, so let's get in front of this Jeep. We'll start up everything and then take it for a ride in a spirited fashion and see if the 330e retains all of the good driving heritage of the 3 Series. Again, this car is optioned to be the sportiest 330e you can spec from the factory. All right, here we go. Some open road, put it in manual mode. Let's lock it in second gear and power down. Wow, some power on oversteer is nice. Oh, and it holds the red line as well in this mode. That is great. Ooh, good red line. Wow, this thing is darty. This is fun. Holy smokes. Whoa, this is hugely impressive. More so than I would have thought. The torque is insane. Wow, does it put the speed down? This is something special for sure. The dampers in Sport are really firmed up. Holy smokes, I am incredibly impressed with the power, the chassis. This is my first time in the G20, this new Generation 3 Series. Man, it just pulls and pulls. Big speed. This has got to be one of the faster cars we've had up here, and we've had some really serious hardware. Seriously, chassis balance and control will just go slow, let the car in front of us get ahead again, and we'll only rip in the twisty sections. But seriously, the balance of this vehicle with the rear drive nature, the brakes are sharp, dynamic traction control lets you have some fun sliding around. Let's just turn that off all the way. So DSC off. But I caution to our viewers, if you are not comfortable with a car in a dynamic situation, please just keep traction control on and learn on track. You know, you really shouldn't be driving over your limits on the street. I don't necessarily agree with speed limits in most cases, but I do think safety's of utmost importance at all times. So we're just clearing the way ahead of us here, and so that little section right there, we used quite a bit of high voltage battery, about 10%. But was that hugely impressive or what? Man, it feels more than 280 horsepower. This thing on paper, maybe it's the extra boost giving us more, but when you put your foot down in this thing, it moves. Now, I'm not a huge fan of BMW's gauge clusters here, but I have a horsepower torque. You can get a G meter, which is silly. You can get music. We can get our manual gearbox, and then you get your temperature, which I imagine will just show middle temperature, like it's fine at operating temp until it melts into a pile of molten aluminum. So that's pretty funny. And yeah, I guess we'll just keep it on the temperature gauge and see if it does anything. Warm out today, 57 degrees for winter time, and a pretty steep climb up here at the end. I'll look to see if it increases in temperature, but I doubt the gauge will show us anything. Look at this mid-range torque, 3,000 RPM, 3,500. It's real torquey, almost a diesel-like quality to this system. Thankfully to that electric system, or I should say, from that electrical system. Here we go, foot down through a good section. Again, we have DSC fully off, so it's just me and the road, the way I like it. Coming through a great section. Cornering grip is nice, the balance is nice, the steering is weird. The steering is rubbery, and new BMWs have felt like this, but man, do you see me bouncing around? The suspension really firms up in this sport setting. Cracks off the shifts. The speed's massive. So this one has the variable ratio steering, which I can totally feel at speed. In the city, it's great because it's almost 2 turns lock to lock, a little bit over, maybe 2 1/4 turns lock to lock. Up here, though, you can tell, depending on how you're driving in the drive modes, the steering ratio changes, which I think is great technology, and I really like that. Now, I just want to make a quick comparison. Like I mentioned, or maybe I haven't mentioned, I owned an F80 M3 competition pack, and that was the highest performance version at the time. Now there's the CS, of course, that you could buy in the generation before this BMW. Now there will be a new M3 coming in this generation with really weird grills. Let's not go into that topic. But this car feels very similar in its lively character. The rear axle wants to come out and have a play. You can tell this thing would just drift all day long if you were to get it in a situation where you could coerce it to do that. The turn-in is exceptional. You get this front wheels in, and it just darts right over. Really good turn-in, and it's great. I think the only thing that this is really missing is the noise of an engine, but it certainly has the power of a much more powerful vehicle. Dang, look at this thing climb the hill! It's really quiet. You really can't hear much from this four-cylinder. Again, detuned 2-liter B46 or B48, depending on the version, engine. Take it slow up over here. A couple things sliding around in the back. Sorry about that. And let's go big power over the hill. Woo! It moves, that's for sure. I am blown away by the performance of this vehicle, by the suspension calibration, by the brake pedal feel. BMWs have always been under-braked, and this car, I would say, is the exception. This car, you get on the braking pedal, look at that, full ABS into that corner, and it just stops. Good throttle control, great traction management from the tire and suspension calibration. This has a wider track, a stiffer chassis, an increased front camber from the previous generation. And it shows that this is a huge improvement from the F30 generation. Look at the power through here. Right out to 6,500 RPM. Big speeds, big speeds, big speeds. Slowing down, pulling the left pedal. And we're going to get it up the hill here in second gear. We are going to spin the tires if I get on it too much. There we go. Just roasting the rear tires out of there. Really easy to control a slide though. I mean, you can do it in your sleep. It's like putty in my hand. Super nice, slick, instant torque. You just get it sideways and you can have fun with little angles. Little angles are the best kind of angles on a road like this. You don't want to do big skids, but you can certainly get some opposite lock going on out of these corners like this. Awesome. Gotta love that. In a plug-in hybrid, we're shredding the canyons and beautiful views at the top. This thing has a lot of torque, a lot of power, and amazing suspension calibration. So there it is in the canyons, hugely impressive. If you want to drive to Starbucks in electric mode and then keep up with the best of them up in the twisty road, the 330e, this is the choice. Cruising down the highway with beautiful views of the Rocky Mountains off in the distance, and have to say, unbelievably impressed with the driver assistance systems on this 3 Series. Now, I haven't yet had a chance to try out this system in stop-and-go traffic using the hands-free system, mainly because we have no traffic here on highways in northern Colorado, ever. So I was thinking I would take this down into Denver and get it in some traffic, but I have to go on a road trip out to Los Angeles, so unfortunately we'll have to wait to try that out another time. Cruising on the highway though, we need to talk about a few things. The first is road noise. Now this surface in particular is unbelievably loud and really beat up, and I have to say the 3 Series is louder than I expected even on a surface like this. It's not as loud as other cars such as a Tesla Model 3, but you know, you do hear everything, especially driving around in electric mode. You get the same noise, tire, white noise that you get driving a normal EV, just because we're driving in electric mode right now on the highway. Now we can drive up to 87 miles an hour in electric mode, plenty of power to get there. Again, 110 horsepower, 77 pound-feet of torque from that electric motor paired to that transmission, which means the electric motor can always is optimized to run in its ideal range paired to the transmission. That's a good idea. Driver assistance is great. So like I mentioned, we are on adaptive cruise control and lane centering. It's doing everything. It's just asking me to touch the wheel here and there. It really does want me to touch the wheel a lot, and I think this wheel is a capacitive touch wheel because it really doesn't require much torque. There's also these 2 little lights that indicate that light up to alert you that, hey, you need to touch the wheel. So I like the color visual aspect right here on the wheel. Suspension comfort, right now I have the dampers set in the comfort setting in electric mode that I'm in, and I have to say, very comfortable and smooth over the big undulations, but the harsh bumps still transfer quite a bit of spike into the body. I'm actually surprised at how firm this car rides, but when I think about it, this one is a 330e maxed out with every performance option. Again, dynamic handling, the big wheels, M Sport, all the stuff. So I guess it shouldn't come as a shock because of how well it drives in the canyons. So this is a compromise I think you have to make when you option out your 3 Series with all the sporty stuff. It is going to be a little rough on you cruising around, but not intolerable and still totally fine for daily driver duty. So on the highway, gotta say, this is a cross-country cruiser, does everything a 3 Series should do. Great technology, great sound system, love the wireless CarPlay, everything's unbelievably comfortable, laid out, and I think the size of this car is perfect. It's small to me. I mean, we're used to driving big SUVs and stuff like this all the time. That's what people want reviews on, so we're driving like Defenders, Nissan Armadas, Tahoes, Suburban, and getting in this 3 Series just feels nice and sporty and small. I really like the size, and on the highway it still retains that very German nature of just hammering down the road with no problem at all. So thanks so much for watching this video. As we do with most cars we test, not every, but most car, I like to evaluate them in our 3 different distinct driving environments: city, canyon driving, and highway. And yeah, glad you were able to join us for this 3 Series, and we'll see you again on the next one.